Gentlewoman from Richmond City, Ms. McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of personal privilege.
Gentlewoman has floor.
Mr. Speaker, my seatmate just lost a battle to keep me quiet in my seat. But I feel compelled to raise a few points. There are those of us on this side of the aisle and on the pro-choice side of the abortion debate who are also haunted by abortions, who hope and pray and wish that none ever had to happen. But that's not the world we live in. And these are not black and white decisions. These are not black and white circumstances. There is a lot of shades of gray. A lot of those babies were wanted. And you've heard me talk about them. But for a wide variety of reasons, beyond anyone's control, they couldn't be born. There are women and men who have had to make decisions about whether it was right and in that baby's best interest to carry a pregnancy to term, knowing that the minute the umbilical cord was cut, the baby would die. I've talked to them. One family said to me, "I would rather die myself than to continue carrying that pregnancy to term and have to mourn again." I spoke this morning with someone who told me the story how she had to quit working at a Catholic hospital as a chaplain because when a woman came in with a pregnancy that would not go to full term, the hospital refused to do anything until her water broke. And she went into labor to deliver a baby who would die. These are not decisions made cavalierly or lightly. And what frustrates me, I agree with the gentlewoman from, used to be Campbell, I can't remember where she's from now, Bedford, sorry, that we need to show each other respect. But do you know how many of these women have come down here and tried to tell their story and been either ignored, dismissed, or rude to, and left feeling victimized because they tried to tell their story and explain how laws that are made without looking at the details would have impacted an already tragic situation. If we want to prevent abortions, let's focus on how to prevent some pregnancies from happening to begin with. We don't talk enough about that here. There are debates at the national level, and even there, most of the people debating it don't have all the facts. I heard someone say that birth control and motherhood are inconsistent, that a mother wouldn't be on birth control. That's not true. Let's talk seriously about what we do to prevent teenage or unwanted pregnancies. Accurate and effective forms of family life education. Let's address some of the issues that are leading some women to decide to have an abortion for some reasons, but let's recognize that there are other reasons, not self-centered lifestyle choice decisions, but decisions of when do I end the suffering? Do I end the suffering before or after my water breaks and I have to go through labor? Legislation will not end abortions. There was a time in this country when they were illegal, and they happened anyway. And you know what happened? A lot of desperate, in many cases, girls who were afraid to talk to their parents or anybody else found somebody unqualified, without a medical degree, to help them, and they died. Because desperate people do desperate things. We cannot legislate medicine. We cannot legislate morality. We cannot legislate religion. And when we try, we make mistakes on this and many other issues. I sat in the other chamber and listened to the debate on the bill we're going to debate a little later. And a question was asked, when was the last time, has Virginia ever mandated a medical procedure? And they couldn't name a time, but I knew of a time. Virginia last mandated a medical procedure when we mandated sterilization, the compulsory sterilization of persons deemed to be feeble-minded, including the insane, idiotic, imbecile, or epileptic. And 6,683 people in Virginia, 2/3 of them women, were sterilized because under the category of mentally ill, 1,875 under the category of mentally deficient, the rest for other reasons, because some people in this body believed it was morally wrong for them to have children. And if you ever read the case of the woman that went to the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court said that was constitutional, it was a woman, a black woman, raped by a white man. They were embarrassed about it, so they had her declared one of those categories. I believe they had her declared mentally deficient and took her to a hospital and sterilized her. Now, we heard in our prayer this morning, and I know there are people of faith of both sides. I grew up in the church at the feet of my father, who's a Presbyterian minister. Now, this morning, the minister asked us to bring justice, mercy, and compassion to this chamber. When we look at these bills, I ask you, where is the compassion and the mercy and the justice for the women whose stories you heard me tell, who wanted children very desperately, but had to decide whether to have an abortion because something went terribly wrong? And part of our problem this year more than ever, is when these bills, whether it is abortion, whether it deals with sexual orientation, whether it deals with contraception, whether it deals with anything where people of faith have legitimate disagreements on, we don't do the due diligence we need to do to read the bills and think about the unintended consequences. But the fact is, we cannot impose our individual views of religion on the entire Commonwealth. And that is why, while some want to legislate based on whether they believe something is a sin, disagree with those who believe the number one rule is judge not lest ye be judged, who believe it is not up to the legislature or government to decide what is right, but to a higher power. So I agree we need to be respectful of each other and our different points of view. But we need to be respectful of every Virginian, whether we think they are sinners or not. Because someone else that most of us, although not all, and we need to remember that too, but who most of us revere very highly said, "Ye among you without sin, cast the first stone." I'm not casting any stones today. And I thank you for your attention.